Hello everyone, and welcome to the Writer's Canvas, where we break down tips and tricks to help make your writing immersive and engaging. Today, we'll be talking about something that might be wrecking your writing without you even knowing it: filtering. So, what the f is filtering? And why should we care? Filtering in writing is like placing a smudged pane of glass between the reader and the story. Instead of letting the audience experience the moment directly, the narrative detours through the character's perception, creating unnecessary distance. For example, she felt the cold breeze brush against her skin. He saw the sun dip below the horizon. They heard the clock strike midnight. Words like felt, saw, and heard are common culprits. Others like seemed, almost, or noticed sneak in to muddy the connection between the character's experience and the reader's immersion. Filtering can happen because we naturally think and talk this way. It's how we process the world in real life. But in storytelling, it creates a barrier. Instead of living the moment alongside the character, the reader is told how the character is experiencing it. Imagine watching a thrilling scene in a movie, but instead of seeing the action unfold, a narrator steps in front of the screen to describe what's happening. It's distracting, redundant, and dulls the impact. Let's reconsider those earlier examples without filters. Cold air swept over her skin, raising goosebumps. The sun dipped below the horizon, its fiery glow melting into the waves. The clock chimed midnight, each note reverberating through the empty room. By removing the filtering and adding in some sensory language, the reader shares the experience directly. Describing the scene immerses the readers and lets them connect with the moment on an instinctive level. Think about it like this: your character is our lens to your world. What they see, we see. What they feel, we feel. If you're describing something happening, we already know it's what they're seeing and hearing. Saying she saw the storm roll in is redundant because, honestly, who else is looking? We know she's seeing the storm, so instead you could take the opportunity to dive deeper into the details. What does the storm look like, smell like, sound like? You can transform something as boring as she saw the storm rolling in and turn it into something like bruised clouds festered on the horizon, their bellies swollen with stormlight, the air hummed with static, a low ominous growl rolling through the stillness, and the smell of ozone pricked the back of the throat like an unspoken warning. This is the difference between showing versus telling. Removing the filters allows us time to really dive into what is happening and immerse the readers in the moment. This allows us to experience the storm alongside the character. Filtering not only creates distance, but it also signals to the reader that they need to prepare for something, instead of simply being present in the scene. Words like suddenly often function as speed bumps, drawing unnecessary attention to the act of experiencing rather than experiencing itself. It's like holding up a sign that says, "Hey, there are things happening over here, look out." For example, instead of saying suddenly the door slammed shut, you could try the door slammed shut, the echo reverberating through the empty house. The immediacy of the action grabs the reader's attention without the need for extra cues. In the same vein, felt is like throwing a blanket over the action, dulling the impact of a moment. Now, felt can work in certain situations, but for the most part, it's lazy. It's a shortcut that robs the scene of its vibrancy. Think of all the other ways you could describe the sensation. Wouldn't you rather experience the feeling alongside the character? Don't hold back. Hit your readers with the rawness of the moment. Describe the tingle, the hurt, the joy, or the excitement. Imagine how the sensation feels in your own body. Where does it settle? What does it do to your nerves? Put yourself in your character's shoes. They have to take the full brunt of the moment, so why shouldn't your readers? You don't need to wrap them in a blanket to soften the blow. Give them the full force of the experience, alive and unfiltered. Filtering often comes from a lack of trust in the reader, in the story, or even in yourself as a writer. Using words like seemed or almost is a way of hedging, signaling that you're not sure the audience will interpret the scene the way you intended. For example, the sun almost blinded her. Readers understand that the sun blinded her isn't literal. It's an evocative way of describing intense light. By qualifying with almost, you dilute the moment's impact. If we just took out almost and added in some sensory language, the sun blinded her, its rays stabbing through her eyelids. It's sharper, more visceral. Readers are savvy. They don't need qualifiers to grasp the stakes or intensity of a scene. Trusting them to interpret what's happening strengthens the connection between your narrative and their imagination. When we write with confidence, we invite the reader to make their own connections. It respects their role as active participants in the story and lets them interpret the stakes, intensity, and tension in their own terms. That said, this approach doesn't apply to dialogue. As mentioned earlier, we naturally speak with filters. If a character says, "I saw the strangest thing today," that's perfectly fine. Dialogue is a place where filters feel natural and realistic. Now, I'm not saying all filtering is bad. There are some exceptions. You don't need to strip filtering completely, just be sure to use it where it will hold the biggest impact. Filtering can be effective if the goal is to highlight the act of participation itself. For instance, when a character becomes hyper-aware of their surroundings or their own sensations. Used sparingly, it can underscore specific emotions or state of mind, like uncertainty, detachment, or disbelief. This is where your voice and style come in. Filtering can create a deliberate separation between the reader and the character, adding nuance to the storytelling. The key here is to use filtering deliberately. It should enhance the moment, not be your default mode of narration. When revising, look for filter words. If you can remove them from the sentence without altering its meaning, they're likely unnecessary. Ask yourself, does a scene lose its impact or clarity without them? If not, let them go. Here are some alternative strategies to avoid filtering that go beyond describing sensations directly. 1. Use environmental details to set the scene. Instead of filtering through the character, let the world itself act as the narrator. For instance, instead of "she felt the heat of the sun," you could write something like "the asphalt shimmered under the blazing sun. Waves of heat distorted the horizon." This creates an atmosphere the readers can step into without a filter. 2. Show internalized thought or reactions. If a character experiences something profound, reflect their emotional or cognitive response. For example, instead of "he noticed the photograph on the desk," you could write, "the photograph on the desk stopped him cold, a snapshot of the life he thought he'd left behind." This invites the reader into the character's inner world. 3. Imply sensory experience through action. Sometimes the act of responding to a sensation creates more impact than directly stating it. Instead of "she heard the loud crash," use "she flinched. Her heart pounded as shards of glass ricocheted across the floor." This approach uses active voice to thrust readers into the scene and lets them feel the immediacy of the moment through the character's visceral response. By employing these techniques, you could bypass filters while still keeping readers deeply connected to the story and characters. Filtering is like wearing sunglasses indoors. It can dim the brilliance of your story if overused. That said, everyone, even the greats like Tolkien, Bradbury, Dickens, and so on, uses filtering. It's a natural part of writing. Just be intentional with its use. If you want a scene to hit readers directly in the face and knock them out, remove the filtering. It will get you one step closer to achieving that goal. Keep in mind, writing is rewriting. Most of the time, I don't catch my filtering until draft 2 or 3, so don't stress about it in the early stages. Focus on telling your story first, then revisit these details. Eliminating filtering is about confidence. Confidence in your storytelling, in your readers, and in the power of your words to convey meaning without holding their hand. When you remove filters, you invite readers to engage actively in the story, to interpret and feel the stakes for themselves. That's the magic of storytelling, turning a string of words into a shared experience, one moment at a time. That's a wrap on this episode of The Writer's Canvas. If you had fun or learned something new, don't forget to tap that like button, share it with your fellow wordsmiths, and hit subscribe to keep the inspiration rolling. Got a topic you're dying to see covered? Drop it in the comments below. I'm always up for a good writing challenge. Until next time, keep sharing your craft, keep experimenting, and don't be afraid to knock your readers out. Happy writing!